and for my father, who was in exile, with issues also he was battling, where you could say he could be the first one to tell me, don't, be among the detractors. Well, what he told me was, you've told me 2 or 3 times about that will that is that seemed to be a very strong interrogation. So that means it's no longer, if it's a project that can create so many jobs, it's no longer your opportunity, it's the opportunity of the country. So the ambition actually with Asante is to inspire African brands. It's very important also to leapfrog and be able to start investing now, not in 20 years, not in 40 years.
Hello there. My guest this week on the Long Form podcast is Maryse Mbonyumutwa. An entrepreneur, Maryse is the founder of Pink Mango C&D, a textile manufacturing company based in the Kigali Special Economic Zone. We discuss her life journey, her choice to return back to Rwanda from exile, and her ambitions for the local textile industry. Maryse.
Sanny.
Welcome to the Long Form.
Thank you very much for having me.
Thank you so much for finding some time. I know getting someone like you, factory owner, on a Monday, kind of difficult, but you found some time for me.
Thank you very much for having me.
First, a couple of weeks ago, I came to visit you at the factory, and I just want to say that I found it so educative, like going through the factory floor with you, seeing the work that your business is doing, Pink Mango, and seeing the staff and all the young people working. It was a really, really amazing experience. And what was even more amazing, at least for me, something that made me really, really happy, although it was tragic, was that a few days after that, after me coming to visit you, I read that a textile factory in the Kigali Free Trade area, Free Trade Zone, had unfortunately caught on fire. So my heart almost dropped. I thought it was you, but obviously it wasn't. So, whew.
It was not us, but it's still very sad for the industry. And it's true that's the factory I used to be a shareholder of, so this is where we started. And after parting ways with the former Chinese business partner, they kept that unit and we took another unit. So literally it could have been us, and in a way it's still us, because this is where we started as well, and it was not good news for the whole industry.
No, it was. I can only imagine the devastation, even in terms of not even just the money, but even the jobs. Those are probably easily 1,000+ people who've probably lost their jobs now.
Luckily, they've been able to recover pretty quickly by renting out another building temporarily. So they literally moved part of the operation. So it was one unit out of many. So they were able to move part of the operation in another building. So only a few workers actually were stopped for a few days. But from what I hear, they've all gone back to work now in other premises.
Amazing news. So let's talk about you, Maryse. You were born in 50 years ago. It's a long time, 1974. The Rwanda you were born in is probably very different from the Rwanda of today. So I'd like to ask you about your childhood. What was your early childhood like? And what were some of those favorite memories of that time that you still harken back to?
Oh, early childhood. Very, very good memories. Very good memories of my early childhood. So I was born, as you say, in Rwanda in 1974. I think we're also one of the very few generations to be born in the CHK, in the in the clinic. So I grew up in Kigali until I was 5. And then we moved to Gisenyi. At the time it was Gisenyi, where I started the beginning of my primary school until I was 10. And at 10 we moved to Belgium. We moved to Belgium because my father was. We moved following my father, who went to further his studies and for a PhD. So, and we lived in Belgium until I was 16. So I returned in Rwanda when I was 16.
So you were in Belgium. So that means, if I can do the math correctly, you left Rwanda in 1984 when you were 10.
Exactly.
And then you were then back in Rwanda in 1990.
In 1989.
Okay.
1989. 1989. So I have actually spent half of my days, half of my life abroad, and mainly in Belgium. So yes. So memories, obviously, in Kigali. Very, very. I was still young. I can't remember, but I remembered we had a pretty good life from what I can remember from those young age. But I remember very well the primary years in Gisenyi, because at the time my father was working for a UN agency there, and was already a very international community. And I have to admit that's something I've been very grateful for from a very young age, to be in an international community. So since the age of 5, so that has probably shaped my view of the world, and so yes. And then yes, remember also our first years arriving in Belgium. That was a big shock from the weather, and then also in boarding school. So the first years were without the parents, were in a boarding school. So that was the first time also to be away from the family, but also very, very good memory from boarding school. I love boarding school, and I've always told my daughter as well that I so wish you could go to boarding school. I think that shapes your character as well, gives you a lot of independence from a young age also. So yes, and then coming back to Rwanda as a teenager was also another new experience, because you come back to your country, but you also a little bit of a foreigner. So no, but very, very fond memories of the teenage years as well. So, but I also have a tendency. I have a friend who said that I have an overdose positivism. So I tend to remember the good times and forget as quickly as possible the bad times. So, but overall, I'm very grateful for the childhood and the teenage years.
You're telling me about the boarding school. I mean, were you a lot of black children in that boarding school, or was it kind of a challenge?
No, the first boarding school I landed into, we were exactly 9 little African girls, only 9.
In a school?
9 girls.
The big school?
Oh, in a big school. It was a big school in Belgium. So, and there was a separate boarding school for primary children, and in that boarding school it was mainly only nine of us. Mainly at the time they were, and I was the 2 Rwandan ones. I was a Rwandan one, and there was another Congolese one of Rwandan origin, and the other one were Congolese, Zaire at the time. So I remember my first holiday, I went back home speaking Lingala instead of of French, and you would wonder, what are you doing in a boarding school? No, we were very few black girls in that boarding school.
I should have asked you. Were you many siblings? Did you have any siblings?
Yes, yes. So I'm the firstborn of a family of 6. So I have 4 brothers and one sister. So that's me. Then 3 brothers, then a sister, and the younger one of the families is a boy.
Okay, and I'm, it's so surprising to hear you speak about the positive, how you have that positive mentality, because let's be honest here. Belgium is not known as a soft landing for little African children. But it's so surprising to hear you kind of almost kind of look at the positive sides and not really because I can only imagine. This is 1984. Colonialism had maybe ended 20 or so years back. There must have been, I can only imagine, the racism, the mistreatment. I don't want to know what the little kids were calling you. I do not want to, because I can imagine it was quite difficult.
There were moments, but again, I think that's when I say where my nature. I don't know if it protects me or yes, I do remember 1 or 2 events indeed, especially from the some of the teachers, but mainly at the boarding school, les institutrices had who looked after the children. Obviously, 84 was a long time ago, a different conception of the word. But again, I'll come back. For me, what I really remember was the fun that we were having with the other girls at boarding school, and some of them were still very good friends up to today. So knowing that you have friends from primary school that you went through to these are the memories that have that I've kept.
You've kind of decided that these bad ones, let me just put them aside.
Put them aside. It's trying to dig in my memories, but what's still coming up? It's the
positives.
As the positives.
Amazing.
Except maybe the snow. The first, the first being hit by the first cold and snow. That was hard, but then also you get used to that, and you get in the flow. It's overall, it's a very positive energy and memory coming back.
And so you were there for 6 years. You come back to Rwanda as a 16-year-old, 1989. It must have, because what I'm thinking about, right, is the difference in the worlds that you've kind of moved into. So, Gisenyi to Belgium. Was it in Brussels, the boarding school?
Yes, in Brussels.
Right?
Yes.
So you come from a very, very, Gisenyi, I can only imagine at that time was quite a small town, probably still beautiful, but it was a small town. And then you go to Brussels. Now you go into this big city, right? And then you have 6 years, your formative years in that big city, in that cosmopolitan world. Then you come back to Rwanda. The Rwanda of 1989 was...
1988, actually.
1988?
So it was 1988, yes.
So it's even worse. Because 1988, I can only imagine you're coming in and you're seeing Kigali. Now you're comparing it to where you've left. Can you paint a picture of what you were seeing?
Yes, obviously when you're coming from a Western town, Western country, and you land, it was very, how can I put it? Yeah, the difference was huge to what you were used to in terms of the city, the infrastructure. It's completely different from where you're coming from. However, what was amazing, and which was also the same feeling later on, even when I returned after from exile, is that feeling of being home. There's something we take for granted a lot, is living in a place where nobody asks you, where are you from? You know, can ask you lots of other questions, but not being asked, where are you from? It's only now that I fully enjoy it. And when I do, because I do travel a lot, and every time I'm being asked that question, when are you from? Now, having my base in Rwanda and living in Rwanda, even the way I answer it is completely different. It's no longer it's not in a defensive way, because before, oh, you're from Belgium, oh, but originally, where are you from? You know, now it's like, oh, you're from Rwanda, but it's a completely different narrative and conversation that you have. It's, I have roots somewhere. I'm coming back. I'm coming from my country. I'm just visiting, traveling here. I'll be going back to, yes, so I think that's something I remember, especially after having been in boarding school and usually, not usually, all the time, where you were part of a small minority of kids in whatever school I went to. So going back home, and yes, you're back home. Though when we came back, I attended the Belgian school, so which was an international school, so where there were more international school than international kids than Rwandan kids, but overall you lived in an environment that was home. So,
So, did you come with your parents? So, like, it had your dad, because he went there to do his PhD, so he came back for work. Was it? Had he finished his PhD?
Yes, when he finished it, my mother came back actually slightly earlier than us with the younger kids of the family, and we came back after. And when we came back at that time, my mom and dad were actually in business, so that's the south. Well, at the beginning, actually, when I said we lived in Kigali, when I was born, my father was a minister, so, and then from there we moved to Gisenyi, so that was for a UN agency, as said. Then we've known him as a student, so we followed him. He was a student, and when we came back, they were in business, in trading business. Mm-hmm.
Okay,
yes.
So you were in Rwanda from you said 88, and then you left again in 1994. Is that correct?
No, actually, in 1992, when I graduated from high school, I wanted to study in English. And English at the time was not something common in Rwanda, because the affiliation with Belgium and France and everybody, it was a French-speaking Rwanda as well. So really the grail for studying was Belgium or France. But surprisingly, even though I was in a Belgium school, I did not want to go to. I was hoping to study in English, but at the time, Rwanda not being part of a Commonwealth country, so when I looked at the UK, it was 3 times the cost of studying in Belgium, and the US, yeah, it's still the same fees as today. So I think it was my first rebellion, because I've always done things differently. when I told my parents that, no, I would like to study in English, even if it was going to take slightly longer to find a bursary, and not to lose time and to start getting acquainted with the language, I went to Namibia. So I had an uncle who lived in Namibia, and I went and spent, what was it? It was 9 months. So working on getting a bursary for an English-speaking country. And also learning English. So there I went to UNAM, the University of Namibia, for a few months, so to already start getting accustomed, while in parallel I worked on securing a bursary either in the US, either in the UK, which I actually managed to do. So I had eventually had a bursary, not for the UK, not the London I dreamt of, but for Wales. But it was better than nothing. And I had another option also for the US. But then at the time, because the brother just after me was also graduating, and the parents were going to support part of the studies because they were half tuition covered. So they requested that I go back to Rwanda for to see the family again before I traveled to go attend the studies. And this is when I went back in, was it November 1993? So and I had a TOEFL test also to take. And the TOEFL test, you had to take it from your home country. So yes, this is how I came back in Rwanda, November 1993, and then 1994. We all know what happened, and there started the exodus, I will call it. Leaving from Kigali. My grandmother lived in Gitarama, so we moved to Gitarama, and from there we moved to Gisenyi again, and we left around the 30th of June with my brothers and sisters. My mom had left before with the younger ones, and so through Congo at Kinshasa at the time, a few were supposed to request for visa. It was supposed to be a short stay, but it ended up being close to 2 months, and then we landed in Belgium on the 1st of September 1994. So
that's a long journey.
That's a long journey.
Before that, I want to go back maybe 1992. So you had this dream of studying in English, but I would not say that that's the dream itself. The dream was to be something. When you were 18, 19 years of age, the young Maryse, what did you want to become?
No, it's also quite funny because I've always been precise actually in dreams. When at a young age, I dreamt of being a journalist. That was my first dream, and later on in my teenage years, I dreamt of becoming a diplomat. Actually, it's and hence the English, the passion also for English. And I remember when you with the parents you've traveled, and I had already realized from a young age that there were no professionally trained diplomats back then, and I'd heard that research, and I found out that there was a diplomacy school in Geneva, and I was like that, and no one had ever been to that school in Rwanda at the time. So and I thought, this is like any other profession. We probably need professionals, and that was my dream. It was to be a professional diplomat for the country then. So this were my dreams.
I'm surprised you don't say politician, because, of course, when you're a child, especially the firstborn, you want to be like your dad. A lot of children do. We were off camera, we're talking about your daughter and saying, you know, she's kind of she's about to start studying business. And I could only imagine she probably looked at you and said, my mom is in business. Maybe that might be what I want to do as well. So it's interesting for me to hear the dreams that you had, journalism, diplomacy. Why not politics?
Why not politics? Maybe diplomacy was part of. So obviously, with my background, I come from a family, a politician family. There's always been in politics from a really long time. I would say. No, but should I say that maybe a diplomat would also fall into the category somehow in the big family of politicians in a way, but maybe something that was more geared to who I was and the international background that that I grew up in. It's yes. So yeah. No. So at the time, it was never really. Never really clear, or if I wanted to become a politician, definitely today and the years after, especially after 1994 and the genocide against the Tutsis, that was definitely a no-go when you come from a big politician family, because I've seen both sides. You know, I've seen how. Politics, yes, it can either. How can I put it? I've seen the good side and the bad side of it. You know, it's the example I always give is when we were fleeing Rwanda and leaving Rwanda. You know, the same name that probably saved you, because at some point I was really. Targeted also physically, and I remember being saved exactly because of one. And then when you have to come back a few decades later, it's the same name as well that can be attacked. So for me, politics is it's not something I'm interested in, and also I think I'm more interested in the development of Africa. I start actually with Africa and then go down in Rwanda. And in a way, if we go back to the old form of maybe old definition of politics as well, is to be able to have a say or a contribution in the way the city is organized in the old Greek form, and I think you can do that through so many other ways, like what we're doing. You know, you can do that through business, you can do that through civil society, you can do that through education. You can, so it's all maybe about determining what you really want to do. And there's already so many candidates on the traditional politics route, less in my industry and what I'm doing, so I'm much happier on the other side.
I mean, I could argue, just for argument's sake, that what you're doing is actually still politics, because, like you said, you have a name that means something on either side, and just living and the choices that you make always have a political dimension. Depending on the lens of the person looking at you. So maybe you're just doing politics in a different way.
This is what I'm saying. You know, having the possibility to contribute to the life of the city, of the country. It is politics in a way, and it's something I thought I've been fighting a lot about that, because people will always want to categorize you and pull you into politics one way or the other. Now I've come to terms with it. I think, indeed, as you said, with my family background, like it or not, whatever I do, whatever I say, will always have, can always be interpreted politically. The choice even deciding to return to Rwanda in 2010, that was a choice. Coming back 2012, and then I've been working with Rwanda, first of all on a trading basis, and then at some point I decided that I wanted to do something bigger, not just trading, but also see if I could also contribute to building the country. So these are choices, and I think it's a form of being part of the political world, I suppose, as well, but maybe not in the traditional way it is defined. And the reason I'm not interested in politics in the traditional way the traditional and also probably the Western way as well, is while the level of education is still low, I would say, I may not have the same view of politics as how can I put it? That means while the level of education is still low, and the understanding of what is actually a vote, what are you voting for, while the 14 millions of Rwandans don't understand it the same way, it's still very dangerous to adopt the Western way of defining politics, because people may not vote necessarily for how can I put it? It's not in Rwanda, and it's all over in Africa. It's so this could still be how can I say, danger of people voting for a group or whatever, not necessarily. While yes, it's in the future, it's something that needs to. Yes, I don't know how to phrase it. I don't know if you understand me.
I understand. If I can, let me see if I can try to make sense of what you've just said. So it almost sounds like you're saying at the level that we are in, sometimes we don't vote for our own best interests.
Exactly, and it's probably what has happened, not probably, definitely what has happened before as well, where you can I'm trying to, again, you see, this is where it's very it becomes very very, very difficult to explain, but it all goes with education. And for me, the danger of people still being able to vote only maybe for one group, as until the level of education is at a certain level that you can really understand that danger could be there and take us back to what has happened in the past as well, which is very unfortunate and shouldn't. So, but that's my view. So that's why I think I really believe that the same way in business, we need to find our own ways of doing business on the continent and what we're doing. The same way also, and this is what I think like Rwanda has managed to do as well. It's like we have a, how can I say, especially like after the last election now, it's when you compare it to, I was in France actually just before the the election here in Rwanda. So I went from somehow being a witness of a campaign, which is, and then coming to Rwanda, but it's clear, you know, and I think what we need is really a vision, because we don't start from the same level, and we don't have the same problem to sort. So for me, one strong party with a vision and a very strong leadership that knows where they are going and where they are taking people. For me, it's my. I know I do have that debate quite a lot with friends and family who have another position on what democracy should be, but I think for me, democracy is when you have voted. You know, you have to be able to vote and to choose, and people have to be humble enough to understand that the choice of people in a certain environment does not need to correspond to what you think it should be in the environment in which you live, because the environment in which you live is absolutely not the environment in which the people determining what the governance should be in the coming 5 years or 10 years should be. So I don't know if that makes sense. So it's.
Yeah, I think that was a very politically astute answer. Today, you're an expert in garment manufacturing and export, but that's not always who you were. You went to Belgium again. You reached Belgium 1994. You said July. You went back in July. So you are 20 years old at around September. So you're around 20 years old at that time. You go back to school. You complete your school, and in fact, after school, you actually get a job in the automobile industry. So, first of all, again, Maryse has wanted to be a journalist, has wanted to be a diplomat, and has now ended up working in the automobile industry. How in the world did that happen?
As they say, life is what happens when you're busy planning life. Actually, accidental, really. So obviously, when I started working in the automotive industry, it was the job that was available. You apply for jobs, and this is what was offered. But then very quickly, after 1 year, I realized I didn't enjoy it. So I'm a very passionate and driven person, and I need to be really passionate and believing in what I do. So I resigned actually at the time, and to take time to apply for other jobs in a sector that I would enjoy more. At the time, I was thinking about consultancy, but already I was also thinking about fashion. And in between, I started temping for a trading company that was importing goods from China, promotional goods, but also garments. So this is how I discovered the trading business, and that I discovered China as well. So that was 1999, and it was fascinating. So then I was a young African girl that had evolved in Rwanda and in Belgium, and now all of a sudden you've got Asia, which was completely unknown, very fascinating, a completely different culture. And I'm also very, very, very grateful for having discovered China at that time, early 20s. And the energy I do feel actually in Rwanda and in other countries in Africa is really reminding me about that time in China. this is where also the faith in this country and the continent comes from, because it was a time where coming from Europe, and every time you went to China, every 6 months, it was something that had changed. You will go there was a building that started building, and then 6 months after it was finished, and then they had developed this. They were advancing so quickly, but most importantly, the drive to make it, the drive and the confidence. They just knew they were on the path to becoming the next superpower, and everything was possible. And it's exactly what I feel, especially from the youth today. And it's amazing to be surrounded by youth today, because I'm reliving exactly that part, and it's a great situation to be in, because
so again, I feel like you're jumping things. So you leave the automobile industry, they bored you, you're not passionate about the work, you decide, you know what, I want to do something different. First of all, that is extremely brave, because very often when you're young, you are sometimes you sometimes settle, because obviously they were paying you, they could probably pay your rent, it was enough to kind of keep moving, but you chose passion, over just doing the same job, or over just being happy that you have a job. It was a very risky move on your part, I think, to just try something different. And then not only do you try to do something different, you do it in a totally different continent. I've been to China, and I was first in China in 2013. Even then, I remember coming out of the airport and all the signs are in Chinese. Now, I can only imagine, and that's after the Beijing Olympics, that's after, China's really opened itself to the world. So I'm imagining that it was even less, or should I say less open to the world even then. But then this young African girl is, from the streets of Brussels straight to probably Guangzhou or somewhere like that. It must have been quite an experience for you, probably even shocking.
Oh yes, the cultural experience was shocking, but amazing at the same time as well. It's no, as you say, I remember my first time actually missing a stop in the subway, because it was all written at the time, even in Guangzhou, in Mandarin, and they had written for me the stop I had to stop at. So you're looking, trying to match each, and then it was, oh, you've passed it. So things like that. And also again, at the time they had not seen also a lot of black people. So wherever you go and you go visit a factory, as soon as you walked in, all the heads are turning and looking at you. It's a black person asking for photos everywhere. No, it was a very, you lived very unusual situation. But again, I have found in my life that indeed when you leave your zone of comfort and you end up in an in a non-comfortable situation, is where you grow the most. You grow the most, and that comes with a lot of humility, just to see that actually what you find strange about maybe this culture is actually common to over 1 billion people now. So it's not who's the stranger, you or them, because they do things differently. It's and there was also a lot of things to learn. I've learned a lot from China, especially, like I said, really that will that everything is possible. Everything is possible, and it is a lesson that is also helping a lot today. The Chinese, they see the world as it is, and even I would say even with their relationship with Africa, they will see and accept Africa as it is and make do with what they find on ground. Where probably in other nations, they first want Africa to get to a level where they want to see it, in a certain image where they want to see it, and then from there start working from there. So, but here that mentality of this is what we have. What are we going to do with what we have? It's an amazing environment to evolve in, because it's very, very adaptable, and you just find solutions. You just find solutions with what you have. Mm-hmm.
So how does this trader then become the person who is about to start opening textile companies across the African continent?
So I first worked for that Belgian company for 7 years. And then I was headhunted by a British company in the same domain. And that's at the time I had just had my daughter. Actually, I was headhunted before giving birth to Emma. But I had told them I had maternity plans. And they were great enough to wait. They say, we would like to, this is a long-term project, so we will wait until your maternity plans are through. And indeed, they waited 18 months before I joined them. There was a company called Hunter Sourcing. They were based in Harpenden. And so spent close to 4 years at Hunter Sourcing. And one day it was time for me actually to do something on my own. But I've always known that I wanted at some point to be an entrepreneur. I would say entrepreneur more than a business person. And I'll separate both. For me, an entrepreneur, you first you solve a problem. And by doing it right and doing it well, money should be a natural consequences. You first chase a passion, and the pension will come rather than the opposite. That's and I've always known I wanted to do something with Africa or Rwanda. By the time, indeed, it was more Africa, because I'd been since '94 in Belgium. Rwanda was sort of no-go again in my head, with the memories, and yes, we're in exile. So you think about Africa, but then Rwanda came after, and but at the time, again in 2010, is when there were quite a lot of publications at the time on the new Rwanda, and I was torn between what I would read in some publications, the miracle that the country is achieving, and on the other hand, also you hear quite a lot of negative press. And I think by now you understood that I always do things I believe in. I decided at the time to come and see by myself, and that was a very, very some people say it was a brave decision, but because I was convinced, because I had to make an opinion for myself. What is really true? Is it what I'm reading on one side, or is it what I'm hearing on the other side and reading on the other side as well?
That was in 2010.
2010. So I remember, and that was in 2010, and at the same time as I was changing career orientation as well, deciding to leave the corporate world, working for other people, and to launch something for myself, which I knew I needed a link with the mother continent. Yes, and I remember February 2010, I came for 3 days in Rwanda without telling anybody. I knew if I had said anything, I could have been discouraged maybe. So that was my first return, I would say. And I was very, very pleased and again grateful, because probably the people I interacted with when I came back really shaped actually what I'm doing today at the time. And yes, so I went back at the time. That was a transition from the UK company to setting up Pink Mango, which I'll fast forward the setting up of the Pink Mango. So I ended up partnering with one of my former suppliers, which I'd had in the Belgian company, but also in the UK company, to set up, first of all, Pink Mango in Belgium, but also Pink Mango in Hong Kong in the Far East as a trading company. But the deal from the beginning was, yes, we will continue in the trade we were in, but we will very quickly add another arm to start doing business with Africa. So this is how it started. Started then in 2012. Actually, I did the first contract in Rwanda. We supplied FF&E, furniture, fixtures, and equipment for the parking by Radisson, all the rooms. So that was GMA, Global Market for Africa, a company that I had co-founded in Hong Kong that supplied the FF&E for parking. And yes, from there I was coming more and more often in Rwanda, but still continuing the activity, which was mainly in China. And the turning point was in 2015, when Ethiopia came on the map, and on the map of the global apparel sourcing. And as one of the very few African person of African descent in the industry, I really felt like I had to contribute to that. So I started sourcing in Ethiopia, placing orders to factories in Ethiopia, mainly Chinese factory, though with one Ethiopian company as well. And then it became clear I was working with them that the African continent had an enormous potential of really becoming the next sourcing hub for apparel and textile.
It's really interesting. You're going very fast. I'm fascinated. I'm truly fascinated by the way people's brains work, mm-hmm. and the things that make them choose what they're going to do. Mm-hmm. Now, you chose in 2010, right? So you're getting a lot of information, mm-hmm. right? And you're living in, is it the UK at the time?
I know, at the time, I was between UK and Belgium.
So there is a large community of Rwandans, mm-hmm. who have a very strong thought process on what Rwanda is. That's a lot of the community that your family was in. Mm-hmm. Now, the thought process of saying, you know what, I'm going to ignore, because I'm pretty sure there's that idea of, I'll go there, they're going to kill us. That's the story even up to today, right? You'll hear that these people will kill you. They'll do this, they'll do that, they'll poison you, they'll throw you in jail, they'll disappear you. You had a child at that time. You had a daughter. So not only are you living for yourself, you have a child that you're responsible for. Mm-hmm. So all the decisions that you're making, it's not just you. You're not just responsible for yourself anymore. You're a mom. But still, you chose a quote-unquote dangerous option with a little bit of a small advantage, a really small upside, but a very big downside. The upside being you're going to discover your country. The downside, you might get disappeared. Now, how do you as a mom look at here, you've been raised decades and decades and decades to probably see the world in a certain kind of way. How do you, as a young mother, decide that, I'm going to get my passport, probably not tell my loved ones because they'll probably say, God forbid, and maybe even lock you up in psychiatric hospital and call you a mad person. How do you decide that, my curiosity, my need to know what the truth is, how do you decide that, that is more important than everything my curiosity, what is going on in your mind? I guess that's what I want to know. How do you come to that decision that has led you to where you are now? But in 2010, it must have been quite a difficult decision to. How did your brain work?
How did my brain work? Actually, for this one also, I have a very clear and precise answer, and it's in the question you ask. It's in the mom. It's in becoming a mother. I have to admit, it's when I had my daughter. So I had a Belgian passport. I was of Rwandan origin. Previously a refugee, but I had acquired a Belgian nationality, but you're called Belgian of Rwandan origin. I was married to a Scottish guy. I was married to a Scottish man. I was married to a Scottish man. We were living in Germany, and I was working in the UK. And I had just had my daughter, and it was probably an identity crisis, which I think most people who have been in exile probably have had at some point, especially if you went from a young age as well. And it's the first time I had a very, very severe identity crisis. And I realized that since I was 5, I've been raised in international communities, living abroad here and there. But that situation that I just described, Belgian, Rwandan origin, living in Germany, working in the UK, you just had a baby, and you're wondering, what am I going to transmit to her? Who am I first? First I had to answer the question, who am I? And when you start answering that question, Rwanda was very heavy. It's yes. What does my Belgian passport mean in a way? It's my European identity as well. It's not anchored enough. I left when I was 20. So this is where everything started. So it's like, and what am I also going to transmit to my child as a culture? Because I first had to make a choice also of the language. What language am I going to teach her? And just that simple question triggered a whole identity crisis process. And this is where Rwanda, my native country, grew bigger and bigger in my sphere of thought. And I was at the time also of elections. 2010 was a time of elections, so it was even heightened. You had a lot of news, as I was saying, really on both sides. And yes, and it's such a big part of my culture, of my identity, I had to answer that question as well. So again, it comes back to drive and passion and what you really believe in. So I had to answer a question that was actually rightly put by a Rwandan singer or singer of Rwandan origin, Corneille, who asked the question. It was in French, est-ce qu'un bout de terre a jamais fait chez soi? Meaning, has a plot of land, is the land that determine home, or is it the social the social part, you know. So that's it's a very long philosophical question, but this is how I ended up to I had to answer that question, you know. For my identity crisis is really that I'm Rwandan and I belong to Rwanda, or actually the years I have spent, I'm European, and this is the European culture that I'm going to transmit to my daughter. And surprisingly, when I came during those 3 days, the question was answered partially.
How?
It was answered partially in a way that I strongly felt Rwandan. So despite of not having my whole social tissue around me, just the land and Rwandans in the country, the bigger Rwandan family, I really felt home. But and also it helped me accept that a part of me also belonged in my other culture. At the end of the day, when you have spent so many years abroad and you have integrated as well, and that yes, maybe I didn't have to pursue that question any further, but for me it really sealed my fate and the rest of and the rest of my life, because yeah, I really felt Rwandan, and it was very important that beyond even actually feeling African, there was a step further. I felt even more Rwandan than I felt African. It felt home. I don't know how to to explain that.
There are a lot of Rwandans who've come, you know, the diaspora, some who've never even lived here. At least you lived here. Mm-hmm. There's some who come back who were born in North America, and then there's that immediate sense of place. It's really interesting. Those 3 days, I'm now really just curious. Who did you meet? What was your experience like? Did you get a chance to travel to, for example, Gisenyi? Or were you just here and just talking to people?
Oh no, it was actually a very, and now I recall it with a smile, but at the time, even booking my flights, I could have had direct flights to Kigali, but I decided no. Actually, there was a cousin of mine who had been to Rwanda before. She'd gone, was living in Ethiopia, and who was also part of the person who came back with positive comments about Rwanda. So I said, you know what, I'm going to Rwanda and you're coming with me. So I'm going to come to Addis, and from Addis we'll take a flight to Kigali, only for 3 days, on a Friday, and go back on a Tuesday morning. And yes, and then indeed at the time and even now for quite a lot of person, there's always the threat that if you come to Rwanda, you'll be killed, you'll be kidnapped, you'll be definitely with your name. There is no way you will come back alive. So you tend to ignore that, but there's always the little voice that tell you, what if? So I remember the flight from Brussels to Addis was there. You're a little bit scared, wondering, but not too much. Then from Addis, we boarded the flight, and I was stopping in Entebbe. And then the Addis Entebbe was fine. But then the Entebbe Kigali, when there was no other it's no other stop, that was another story. And you stop imagining a lot of things. And I'm very fond of Rwanda immigration, by the way, maybe probably from that time, because I remember I arrived, took my passport, and the guy just said, welcome home. That's it. Didn't ask me anything else, but just stamped and said, welcome home. It was very, very professional, and that triggered something. I felt just at peace. And then those 3 days indeed was just in Kigali. I just met with a few childhood friends that we had not seen, and was very lucky. I had a few cousins who were around as well, and who'd been coming in and out of Rwanda. So it really recreated maybe that feeling of home, and that was it. And the following year, that was in February and December, I came back with my husband then, and we spent a longer time then visiting the country and going where we lived, my grandparents' places, and all that. And then after that, that was it. It was set.
So that's such an amazing. Like, I think what that immigration did was probably, because you're probably thinking, okay, he's going to see my name, and he's going to probably take me aside, right? Isn't that what you're thinking? That's what's going to happen? And I think that maybe by that very act, as you said, it just triggered that sense of, okay, all those bad things that I thought would happen to me, they might not happen to me. So it's really interesting. I'd like to. When we first met, we were again at the factory. We were talking about the factory itself and how there reached a time when you had the opportunity to choose where your factory would be, and you had a few countries to think about. There was Ethiopia, right, which was already there's a big textile ecosystem there. Then there was Rwanda, which really did not have much of a larger garment textile manufacturing capacity at the time. And you told me that when you were thinking back and forth about this, okay, where do I go? And there was something driving you to come to Rwanda. And you went and you told me that you went to talk to your dad. And you sought his advice. And now what you said, if I can remember exactly what you told me, was that he surprised you, right? He said something that he said that if that is what your heart is, if that's what your heart wants you to do, then it is your responsibility to the Rwandan people to do what is best for them. Because I think you had come and told him, I'll be able to have X amount of jobs, there's this opportunity, we can upskill an entire population. And he said, you as a Rwandan have the responsibility to do this. I found that very, very interesting, because you would have thought that I would have thought that he'd be one of your detractors, saying, you know what, don't take that money to that country. That must have been, just hearing your dad say those words must have been quite surprising, that he wanted you to be here too.
It's, I think it could be quite surprising for people who don't know him, and even for me, actually. I have to admit that the answer and the advice surprised me, because what I forgot to mention, that's between the 2010 and the 2017 actually, when I started the negotiation for this project. In between, things were not always, how can I say, I've had the very positive experience in 2010, in 2012. But then unfortunately, that also triggered, as the Rwandan community, inside and outside, there was still some, how can I say, me being in Rwanda, triggered a lot of discussions, some positive and negative on both sides. It was not always an easy situation to deal with, and yes, and for my father, who was in exile, with issues also he was battling, where you could say he could be the first one to tell me, don't, be among the detractors. But what he said exactly was that, you've asked me that question 2 or 3 times. I think I'd come to him and say, yeah, we have this opportunity. We're going to settle in Ethiopia. We can create 10,000 jobs, but it's really bothering me, especially after having been in Rwanda, and also the very, very interesting conversation I had with very, very positive people in Rwanda that I didn't expect to have that type of conversation, and that all converged into development is really the key to a lot of Rwandan problems, and people need to work together. And my father kind of said something in alongside that as well. What he told me was, you've told me 2 or 3 times about that will that is that seemed to be a very strong interrogation. So that means it's no longer, if it's a project that can create so many jobs, it's no longer your opportunity, it's the opportunity of the country. And you have to learn not to equate your own life and your own story to the life and the story of a country. And for me, that was a blessing. And I said, whatever happens, anybody else can say what they wish, because from him, in the situation in which he was in, who could have been the first person, who could have been maybe probably angry or whatever not to say, but who says, just go. The only thing he just added as well, it's he said, and it's a good thing, go and discover really your country, because now you're really going to go and live there, because you've been raised mainly in an international community and culture. So it's a good thing also that you go and really live in Rwanda and work there, because you are now going to discover really the Rwandan culture. And he did warn me. He's told me it's not an easy one. It's not an easy one. So no, that's very. That was and to come back to this project, actually, before even deciding to move it from Ethiopia to Rwanda, the whole idea and message behind it, indeed growing up, spending quite a lot of time in the diaspora, I call it really the African diaspora in Belgium, because I've always been more in an international community, even African community. I was always annoyed towards the end of Africans in the diaspora complaining about the state of our continent. It's always it's colonialism. If it's not colonialism, it's our rulers. It's all over the place in Africa. But the question was, you're sitting here in a very pseudo-comfortable, because actually it's not as comfortable as people think. So instead of complaining about what others are doing wrong all the time, why don't you try and bring your own contribution? You're supposed to be in Western countries where you may get a better education, you may get a better outlook on life as well. So instead of complaining year after year after year after year about a continent you so dearly love because you're talking about it every day, or a continent or your country, why don't you just go back and try and bring your contribution? So that was the first message or behind the project. The second one also, and this time it's for the host countries, because when you've landed in those countries as a refugee, and over the year, being a refugee in Europe has really become a very, what will be the right word? It's lower than lower class, you know. The refugees, they're the scapegoats for everything. They're coming to take our jobs, they're bringing other cultures, but when you have been one as well, it saddens you because nobody leaves their country for fun. And maybe stories like mine can also show like the host country. Like I say, I'm still have my heritage of the years I spent in Europe. So maybe to say if refugees are well integrated in your societies and communities, maybe like me, when the conditions are right, they can go back to their country and create. Yeah, first of all, they can enhance your economy because we've worked, we've paid taxes, still have a company there. I employ Belgian employees, so you're contributing to the society. But most importantly, also you can go and be part of the solution in Africa to avoid our young people, our brains leaving the continent because there are not enough opportunities. So there is that as well. It's not always you coming to us, but well, what are the causes and what can we do? What can we do together? And maybe those who land on your land, if you integrated them better and find paths, we could kind of close the loop. Because the thousands of workers, of young people you've seen employed in Pink Mango or in other companies, these are non-candidates for immigration. So that was the second message. And the third message for me, which was very important as a Rwandan, is like we really need to break that circle of people outside of the country, people inside of the country. And the only way to do that is to come home. That's when possible, of course, but it's, and some people probably have to,
I guess it's a, I call it almost a Rwandan curse. We're always fleeing. And sometimes we're not even fleeing for a good reason. Just, we create these monsters and there's really literally no monsters, right? Or if there are monsters, it's us. We need to do better and come create the systems that you are. And I think that's why stories like yours are so important, because it's telling the world, it's even telling Rwandans that this does not have to be our fate. There could be another fate. It doesn't have to be this. I'd like to talk about Pink Mango itself, your business. You came, if I'm not mistaken, properly in 2019 to kind of establish the business. Now, 2019, you could have not come at a worse time. Not only had the Americans banned Rwandan-made apparel from entering the American market without taxes, because we could no longer use AGOA to take Rwandan-made clothes for without tax. You came just before COVID hit, right? And now everyone knows what COVID did. So you almost had the double challenge of trying to, how do I set up a business and make it successful, yet probably the biggest market in the world is close to me. And then while you're busy trying to navigate that one, the whole world shuts down. things could have gone extremely negatively. But somehow, we are now 5 years since then, half a decade. And not only have you been able to survive those challenges, you could even say you're thriving. When I came to your factory, it looked like, okay, I spoke to you and you had ambitions. Like, we're here, but we want to go bigger and bigger and bigger. What were the steps that allowed you? What were the moves that you maybe did, or what were the support systems that allowed the business to survive such huge challenges?
So the AGOA part actually is what brought us to Rwanda, because we were working on the European market, and when we were negotiating in Ethiopia, it's when I heard about a Chinese factory closing down in Rwanda. They were just because Rwanda had been removed from the textile part in AGOA, and they had an American client, so they were in difficulties, and the lady was thinking about closing down. She was actually closing down. And I heard that through a Chinese friend in Shanghai, and who told me, oh, you come from Rwanda, you are about to go to Ethiopia. Maybe you can try that factory in Rwanda, because I can't find investors to come in Rwanda for this industry, for the obvious reason we discussed, small country, no, we are not a cotton grower, we don't have access to the American market, you name it, all the negatives. And so for us, that was an opportunity because we had European clients, and this is where it kept really coming back. There is that opportunity in Rwanda. Do you continue? And so we say, let's try. So actually 2016, end of 2016 or 17. In 2017, I placed the first order to the factory in Rwanda to see if, despite all the negative aspects about investing in a textile industry in Rwanda, there could be something we could do. And it was actually very positive because they produced above expectation quality already at the time. And we had visited the factory as well. And it was quite, there was definitely a possibility of doing something. So for us, actually, the AGOA part was not a big burden. However, COVID, and so negotiation to take over that factory and to establish a bigger facility started in 2018, and we eventually signed in 2019, in June 2019, and March 2020 we were first hit by COVID before everybody else because our supply chain was in China, and China closed down before everybody else. Ooh, and we could see this big catastrophe coming. And I have to admit that this is where working with the Rwandan government has been the most amazing during COVID. It's really, really amazing. When we, first of all, when we requested help, because we knew what was happening in China, and I remember we had people still traveling all over the world, visiting the factory, and the first time I thought like we could have a health catastrophe here if one of these visitors brought the virus in a facility with so many people. And we called RBC to come and prepare us what could happen. The response was so professional, and that was just at the beginning. They came for training, explain to us, to the workers, what the prevention measures to take. Then further on came the lockdown, and we had to close, but we had orders to deliver. Our first order as in made in Rwanda to our customer, we could not imagine how we were not going to deliver. So at that time we had to be very creative. What do we do? It's a lockdown. We tried to see if we could exceptionally reopen the factory given the urgent orders we had to deliver. We were told no, because only health and food sectors were allowed to reopen. So, but then at the time, I just asked the opposite question. So, what will it take for us to be reclassified as a health sector, for example, or a food sector? And that's at the time we suggested to produce PPEs, to reconvert into PPEs, and to be able to keep the factory open and not lose the jobs, because we had also just trained workers for ready clothes. So that was from June 2009 to June 2019, all the way to, that must have been April maybe. It's anyway, during COVID. And how do we save these jobs? And people are going to go home with no work, no food, also not being paid. And they said yes. If you can find a solution of reconverting into PPEs and producing masks and coveralls for the Rwanda Biomedical Center, it's just you could receive the authorization to open. So, but during lockdown also what we did was every 2 weeks we were distributing food to the workers. And there also we got the support of the Rwanda National Police, because we had to get a special authorization for the workers to leave their community to come and pick up the ration of food for 2 weeks. So no, it has been really amazing and an eye opener about what were the possibility actually in Rwanda of developing businesses that seemed impossible to develop, because it's all about the mindset and the willingness to make things happen and work. So this is how we managed to reopen the factory, still produce PPE and finish our orders. And the last step, which was amazing, it was also a deal with Rwanda that allow us to deliver our goods through a Rwanda cargo at a preferential rate, at the preferential made in Rwanda rate, which allowed us actually, while the whole supply chain in the garment industry was closed down, China, Bangladesh, and all the other countries, so they were experiencing delays from all over the world. They had that tiny little country that has just appeared on the map of apparel sourcing that was delivering on time. So this actually gave us an edge for the future. And yeah, so this is how we managed to do it. But I have to admit that the other reason also that kept the business going is probably the partnership that was Rwandan and Chinese. And here I will probably preach for partnerships and probably for encouraging and patronizing local investors and local content as well, because while all the other countries all around the continent were closing down because it's the expatriates were going back in their country, here we went the extra mile, because for us there was no way we will close. You go, so I think as a national, you will always go the extra mile to keep the job or to keep the business going, because in theory, there should be no other, no plan B. No plan B for cheaper labor, no plan B for another market. You have to make it work. And that also was, because we had long discussions and debate. Do we close the factory or do we keep it open? So it was in fighting to keep it open that all the solutions and creative solutions about reconverting in PPE came from. While if we only had plan A, it's to close, and we were both on the same wave, how do you say that in English? Wavelength, we probably would have closed like most of the other factories on the continent.
When you look at, so for the last 5 years, you've been growing, you've been surviving, you've been making the choice to remain open. Of course, but then you're a business. The only way that you stay open, it's not because of your patriotism, it's because you're able to pay your overhead, you're able to pay your taxes. You have to make a profit at some level. So I would like to kind of ask your impact, the impact of your business on our local economy. Because sometimes it's good to understand at the macro level, what does this mean? A lot of Rwandans understand tourism. They're able to say that, you know what, maybe it's because, the kind of work that Visit Rwanda and RDB has done to kind of let people know the impact of tourism. We know, for example, that tourism last year brought in 600 and, if I'm not mistaken, $20 million. It provides almost probably close to 100,000 jobs. It's done this, it's done that. So when people think tourism, they immediately think, okay, this is an industry that needs to be supported. This is an industry that we all have to give a fighting chance to. I'd like to kind of have a better understanding of the textile, the garment industry. Is it, in your experience, right? So like using your business as almost a lens on the larger economy of textiles. What, for example, has been the impact of Pink Mango over the last 5 years in terms of taxes, in terms of job creation, in terms of export earnings? Pretty much the question is, what have you done? What have you brought into the Rwandan economy?
So the impact on the Rwandan economy, I think the biggest impact has been job creation. So today, jointly with C&D Products and Pink Mango, because today we are two separate companies, but we jointly employ 6,000 workers. 5,000 in C&D, 1,000 already in Pink Mango while we restarted in May. So it's already been 1,000 jobs created since May this year. Those employees, they all pay taxes. We pay RSSB for all our workers, from the cleaner all the way to the employees in the office. Then in export revenue, cumulated export revenue is around $18 million in the past 5 years. And here I will also add that we are still in a test phase from our customers. So which means they are still testing Rwanda as an apparel sourcing country.
So you're saying that you've made $18 million as a test phase?
As a test phase in export revenues. Export revenues. And very importantly also, it's to mention the spin-off industry that come from supplying a company like Pink Mango or Pink Mango C&D before from this industry. So when the 6,000 workers, we feed them every day. This is a contract that we outsource to a local company, logistics sector that transport our goods, run there on the cargo part when we have to use cargo, but then really an ecosystem of spin-off industries that have plugged in this opportunity. We source now locally our cartons in Rwanda. We've provided the opportunity to a carton manufacturing company to expand the capacity to be able to meet our demands. So some of the examples of the impact on the economy. We've also something that cannot be undermined is the branding of Rwanda, especially the quality, because we have decided to specialize in a very complicated item, which is for export, which is outerwear, paddy jackets for winter, and you won't find this type of category outsourced at scale in other countries, even in Southeast Asia. The reason is when people started outsourcing outside of China, they started outsourcing easy items, a t-shirt, a denim. But for us, for Rwanda, it was a strategic decision that was made at the time. We could not have gone into products where we are competing with Kenya or Tanzania, which have ports, or Ethiopia, which had a much bigger ecosystem, and definitely not countries like Bangladesh or Cambodia or Myanmar, which have many more years of experience and a much better ecosystem. So we had to choose a product category that was and still is mainly produced in China. And knowing that most of the major global brands want to reduce the dependency on China, if they are looking for alternative of producing outerwear, these paddy jackets in the world, there are not that many countries. And for a few years, we were the only factory in Rwanda producing them. In Africa. Now there is a company in Ethiopia that is also producing them. But when we started, we were the only one. So that brought the country on the global apparel sourcing market at a already high level, where people were very surprised. So we've never heard about this country, but they're coming up with a sophisticated and quite a complex item, so which opens door for all the other categories of product which are easy.
It's amazing. How hard has it been for you to run a successful business in the country?
Success is in the making. There's still quite a lot to do. But yes, we have to pause and celebrate what has been achieved already. How hard it has been? It has been difficult, but we are still progressing and expanding. So I would say what has been the most difficult, and still is the most difficult, is that we are trying to build an industry, and a company alone cannot build an industry. An industry needs to be built by a full ecosystem. So that means the financial system must follow. Here there is still a big gap, the access to finance, that make us uncompetitive compared to factories located in other region of the world. So this needs to be done. Recently, we suffered and still are for the moment. Our capacity in cargo, for example, while we have really built in the made in Rwanda tariff of Rwanda in our business model, and it has been one of the attraction for the buyers, knowing that if we were going to experience a delay in production, we do have a plan B. But the fact that today we're suffering from a lower capacity is hindering our development as well. Training. training. We have to do our own training. The TVET schools are not yet training workers for our industry. So
who are they training workers for?
So like in the sewing, when they for the garment and textile industry, the majority, the majority actually of the training is really directed at tailors who are being trained to become local individual traders tailors in their community, but there should be schools and training schools for industrial sewing, which is a completely different area. So now I would say those have been some of the challenges. Also, probably some of the government institutions because we have a partnership with the government, so some of the how would I say that? It's a sensitive part here we are getting at, but it's needed. No, I will sum up mainly all the challenges about not moving at the same pace. And when I say the whole ecosystem must really adapt to the constraint of the industry, if we want to do export and garment export, we need the whole ecosystem need to understand what are the rules for success, embrace them, and adopt policies that will make sure that everybody is on the same wavelength. So that is, we must deliver quality at a certain cost and on time. So we can produce on time, but if our logistic sector is not delivering on time, one link is broken. And I always like, even when I tell my team now, is when we are in a building stage like where we are today, it's very important to understand that we are only as strong as our weakest link. It's not our strongest link. We are only as strong as our weakest link. So it's very important that the whole ecosystem moves and adapt to the constraint of the industry and the global industry in which we want to be part of.
When you look 5, 10, 15, 20 years down the line, I would like to know, is Pink Mango able to survive what is coming the next few years? Is our entire industry able to survive what's coming in the next few years? Because when you think about this, the world is in constant change. Today, there's what's happening in Gaza and how that one has affected trade routes. Then there's the war in the Ukraine, and then there is other African countries coming into the textile business. When we met, we were talking about Lesotho and how it had built quite a good textile system, textile industry, and then today it's almost non-existent because things just changed and they were not ready for the change. So I guess I'm asking you to put on your futuristic hat and think about what's happening in a decade, 2 decades. Does a business like yours survive? Does it thrive? Or does it disappear?
It has to thrive. It has to thrive. First of all, because the industry we are in is an industry that is always going to be needed. People will always need to wear clothes, unless we all decide to become nudists, which I don't think is. People will always. It's an industry. The demand is always going to be there. The demand today is still driven by the West, where there is an aging population and where this industry, despite all many efforts in investing in nearshoring, in reviving some of the textile industry back in Europe or in the US, it can only be done only a very small percentage of it, I believe, can be revived in Europe. So the next frontier from this industry is the next place in the world where you have abundant labor, cheaper labor, cotton growing continent. The next frontier is Africa, and this is where we are. So even in Rwanda, despite that we are not a cotton growing country, what has been very encouraging in the past 5 years is, for me, what turned out to be the nice surprise. It's the dedication of the workforce, how quickly Rwandans have been able to learn. And we are a labor-intensive industry. So, and today we are able to produce paddy jackets, winter jackets, and export to Europe, while we are surrounded by so many countries in Africa that grow cotton that have not even managed yet to export any cotton item from the production. So this shows that again, with the right vision, the right leadership, it is very possible to develop a labor-intensive industry, because this cet avantage, what we are doing today, these years of training that we are giving to the Rwandan garment industry, this is an advantage we are taking today. And for me, I do see, so we will continue these sophisticated items and also branch into production for luxury brands. For luxury brands which are not producing in Southeast Asia, and which are only producing for the moment a major part of the supply in Europe. So countries like Italy or Portugal or Eastern Europe, and a part of it in China as well. So if Rwanda could find its niche in this garment apparel sector, for the future, we are set, because this will be needed. And this is only for the export part. And when it comes to the export to Western country, but we should not also forget that we are now a part of a 1.3 billion people market, the AFCTA, which is coming. And if we manage to develop our industry for export and use those skills for local and regional markets, and we can supply neighboring countries around us, our logistic constraints becomes void, because if you can deliver by truck your neighboring countries, there is the traditional logistic constraint of the country just disappears. So yes, no, I really do believe in this industry for Rwanda, mainly based off what I would say are cotton, which has been the workforce, the dedication of the workforce, and how quickly they've been able to learn skills.
And how big do you see Pink Mango becoming in terms of, for example, staff? Because when you were talking to your father all those years ago, you were saying that I'm going to have a business that can employ 10,000 people. Do you see that happening?
Definitely. Definitely. Because already today, jointly with the former business partner, which is employing 5,000, Pink Mango is already employing 1,000, so that's 6,000 workers after only 5 years. And in our industry, 10,000 workers, it's something no more. I have visited factories in Egypt or Bangladesh which employ very easily 15, 20,000 workers easily. It's like a young one, a Korean company. They have sites where they employ 70,000 workers. So, and this is the big advantage of the CGT industry, CTG industry, cotton, textile, and garment industry. It's a big purveyor of work. So it is definitely possible. But what we have decided to focus on also in Pink Mango, now we are committing to the government to create an extra 1,000 to 1,500 jobs within Pink Mango. But what's very important for me is to develop the industry now. No longer just focusing on growing one company or two companies, but we need to grow the industry. So our plan today is to collaborate and cooperate with local factories that also has the potential to grow and capture the international market, and together create an ecosystem of Rwandan factories that can increase the capacity of the country, so that it's no longer just one company that's growing, but it's the whole industry with as many players as possible. And with the dedication, again, I see, and the willingness from the few companies we have identified to work with, I can see that happening in less than 3 years. We can have an ecosystem of very easily 10,000 workers between the garment exporters in Rwanda.
That's amazing. And as a Rwandan, I'm anxious to see you succeed. Obviously, I went to that factory. I went to your factory, and it's just full of young people. Actually, I think the majority women. And I think that if you win, there's a lot of young people who will have the opportunity to better their lives, to provide for their families, to take them off the street, to give them skills, and just to also allow them to have a taste of a good life, a normal life, where they can take their children to school, have a home, wear some nice clothes. I have one last question before I ask you to leave. Bid you farewell. Are you ever going to provide clothes for the local market, or shall I have to travel to Europe to go to a shop in the UK, in London, in Brussels, to buy a made in Rwanda shirt, jacket made by Pink Mango?
We have started, but from the high end. And this also has a rationale behind it. It's so we have started with our brand Asante, which I hope can become a global brand made in Rwanda one day. And this is actually to also allow African brands to scale and grow and capture the highest part of the added value in this whole value chain. Because it was quite a frustration to see us and seeing the continent building these big manufacturing sites to serve Western brands and capturing only a small percentage of the value chain, while the Western brands capture most of the value chain in marketing, in branding. So the ambition actually with Asante is to inspire African brands and our continent also, that while we do need step number one, and this is what we're investing in. It creates jobs, it creates export revenue. It's very important also to leapfrog and be able to start investing now, not in 20 years, not in 40 years, in the activity that captures the highest part of the value addition as well. And we can do both. This is really the big opportunity of the continent, because we know better. I would say information is available everywhere now, so that means we can still be the next factory of the world, but also start grooming our own brands to also capture the international market. And when it comes to supplying for the local market, we also do through local manufacturing of uniforms. So for some of the security forces like the police, Rwanda, correctional services, we're already producing the uniform. But the next step, and this is what we are aiming to achieve with that ecosystem of local factories we are going to collaborate with, as while we cooperate with them to give them skills and capture part of the global market. At the same time, these skills are going to be used by each and every company in that ecosystem to also enable economies of scales to be able to now start producing for the local market and the regional market as well. So that's the goal. Exciting. I can't wait to see what the future brings. Maryse, I just want to thank you so much for your time. This has been a long conversation, but it's been a good conversation. I've learned so much about you, about your journey, and about your business. I wish you nothing but good fortune moving forward. And just know that here at the Long Form, we are your fans. So thank you so much for joining me. Thank you very much, Sanny. Thank you for having me. And if the story can inspire, I say for me it's the first KPI of what we should be doing as entrepreneurs again. Amazing. Thank you so much. Thank you very much.